So I want you to imagine standing on your feet for like 12 hours straight.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
Just physically brutal.
Right. And you're in this bustling Beverly Hills salon, and you are, wielding a pair of shears with just the absolute precision of a surgeon.
Yeah.
But the person sitting in your chair is just weeping, like weeping openly in the mirror about a failing marriage.
Hmm.
And in that specific microsecond, you have to ask yourself, are you a hairstylist? Or, are you a minister?
It's a profound question because today's source material, it really suggests that at the highest level of mastery, there is absolutely zero difference between those two things.
Exactly. Okay, so welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are really excited you're here.
Yeah, we've got a fascinating one today.
We really do, because
Yeah.
the premise here, it challenges this really fundamental assumption that's built into modern society.
Right. The idea that the secular and the sacred are just entirely separate rooms in the house of human experience.
Exactly. Like, we've been conditioned to believe that spiritual work, it happens in a designated building, right, on a designated day.
Yeah, usually Sunday.
Right, and then secular work, well, that happens in an office or a shop or a clinic during the rest of the week.
Totally compartmentalized.
Completely. But today, we are dissecting this incredible transcript from the Hairstylist Empowerment Podcast.
And the guest is she's a powerhouse.
Oh, unbelievable. Dr. Stella Spicer. And to give you, the listener, a baseline here, we are looking at a woman with over 53 years of experience.
53 years. Let that sink in.
Right. As a licensed cosmetologist, an industry educator, and a heavily credentialed minister with multiple doctorates in theology.
It's just a completely unique resume. And the mission of this deep dive today is to really deconstruct how Dr. Spicer engineered a life that completely erased that secular-sacred divide.
I love that phrase, erasing the divide.
Because that's what she did. We're going to look at the mechanics of the beauty industry, the psychological frameworks of, spiritual resilience, and really how you, whether you are, writing lines of code or managing a supply chain or teaching a classroom, how you can apply her blueprint.
To fuse that everyday labor with actual legacy-defining purpose.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the architecture of this blueprint, we have to start at the foundation.
The very beginning.
Right. And the foundation is a little girl in the 1940s who looked at the beauty industry and vehemently, just absolutely rejected it.
She wanted nothing to do with it.
Nothing. So her family had moved from Mississippi to Monrovia, California. And by the time she's 5 years old, her mother is attending beauty school, which means young Stella is physically sitting in the salon practicing on mannequins simply because she has literally nowhere else to be.
And we really have to contextualize what African-American hair care looked like in the 1940s and 50s.
Oh, it was a totally different world.
Completely. This was an era dominated by thermal manipulation.
Right.
It required heavy iron pressing comb, right? And these combs were heated on actual physical stoves.
Just sitting there in the salon.
Exactly. The stylist had to manage extreme heat, these really heavy petroleum-based pressing oils, and just immense physical tension to manipulate the texture of the hair.
So it wasn't just, a quick haircut. It was an intense manual labor.
Very labor-intensive.
So you had this 5-year-old sitting in a chair, watching her mother sweat, watching her stand for hours in a, let's be honest, probably a poorly ventilated room.
Oh, undoubtedly.
Dealing with the smell of burning oil and hot hair. It makes complete psychological sense that her brain processed that sensory input and just concluded, I want no part of this.
Right, because children are incredibly astute at reading the somatic reality of their parents.
Yeah.
She observes the fatigue. She saw that the literal mechanics of the job were draining her mother's life force.
And she explicitly states in the transcript that she actively resisted the industry.
But this is the interesting part. The socioeconomic realities of the time and just her innate proximity to the craft, it meant the industry, as she put it, pursued her.
It wouldn't let her go.
No, it wouldn't.
So she eventually gets her license in 1971. And I want to freeze the timeline right there.
Okay, let's freeze it.
Because 1971 is a tectonic shift in the geometry of hair design in the United States.
It's huge.
If she had entered the industry 10 years earlier, honestly, she might have just burned out.
Yeah, she might have just walked away entirely.
But she enters exactly as Vidal Sassoon is bringing precision cutting to America.
And that paradigm shift, it really cannot be overstated.
Give us the technical breakdown of that because it's fascinating.
So prior to precision cutting, styling was all about forcing hair into a temporary shape.
Using what, rollers and stuff?
Rollers, pin curls, a ton of back combing, and these really strong chemical setting lotions.
You're basically fighting the hair.
Exactly. You're fighting its natural growth patterns. But Vidal-Sassoon introduced this architectural approach that was actually based on Bauhaus design principles.
It's like the difference between a sculptor molding wet clay and an engineer designing a load-bearing bridge.
That is the exact mechanical distinction. That's a perfect analogy. Precision cutting uses the internal bone structure of the client's skull as a literal mathematical grid.
Wow.
Yeah, so the stylist uses scissors to remove weight and cut these really precise angles, graduations, layers, bobs.
So the hair just naturally falls into place.
Exactly. It falls into a permanent geometric shape without needing to be forced by heavy manipulation.
It's like a classically trained pianist who feels completely stifled by the rigid, repetitive mechanics of sheet music, but then suddenly discovers the underlying music theory of jazz.
Yes, suddenly it makes sense.
The instrument they dreaded literally becomes an extension of their intellect. So Dr. Spicer learns precision cutting, and it completely rewires her relationship with her profession.
She transitions from viewing hair as this, exhausting physical chore to viewing it as a structural puzzle.
Which is so much more intellectually engaging.
Completely. And the source material notes she flew to New York to train under John and Susie Chadwick at Glenby International.
Which, for context, was a massive deal.
Oh, it was the absolute vanguard of salon education at the time. There's nothing higher.
Right.
And she masters this technique so thoroughly that she understands how to apply geometric cutting to all hair textures.
Which wasn't common. But let's look at the friction of that mastery, though. Because the transcript mentions that when she was on this elite 50-person styling team for Glenby in New York, she and her friend Debbie Pierce were the only two African-American women in the entire room.
Yeah, and we really have to look at the high-end precision cutting world in the early 1970s. It was deeply segregated.
Both culturally and practically, right?
Exactly. Many high-end salons simply did not train their stylists to cut highly textured African-American hair using these new geometric methods.
Because it wasn't their clientele.
Right. And conversely, Black stylists were frequently excluded from these elite European-based training programs.
So her presence in that room really represents a systemic anomaly.
She broke through a massive barrier.
Which leads to a detail I actually have to push back on a little bit.
Okay, what is it?
So, her confidence skyrockets. Her family dubs her Stella Scissorshand.
Great nickname.
Iconic nickname. She moves to the Bay Area and buys an all-white barber and salon shop called Precision Hair Design.
Right.
Now, the source material says she earned the complete trust of her staff simply through her undeniable skill.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, how? I mean, the sociocultural friction of a black woman managing an all-white staff in the 1970s, just being good at cutting hair, doesn't magically erase systemic prejudice.
Right, and it's a very necessary skepticism to have. We definitely can't gloss over the racial dynamics of that era.
It had to be tense.
Oh, absolutely. But we have to look at how the mechanics of a barbershop actually operate. It functions as a hyper-meritocratic subculture.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, in a high-volume cutting environment, respect is brutally transactional.
Oh, I see.
If a manager steps behind a chair and executes a flawlessly blended fade or a complex graduation in half the time it takes the rest of the staff,
You literally can't argue with the results.
exactly. It creates immediate cognitive dissonance for anyone holding a prejudiced view.
The technical superiority basically forces a truce.
It forces compliance first, which eventually evolves into trust. Because she didn't just lead through, administrative authority. She didn't just say, I'm the boss, listen to me.
Right, she wasn't just signing the paychecks.
No, she led through pedagogical value. She taught them cutting techniques they simply did not know.
Oh, wow.
And when you become the source of someone's professional advancement and their increased earning potential,
You bypass their social biases and tap directly into their self-interest.
precisely. You make them better, they make more money, and suddenly the prejudice starts to evaporate.
That is brilliant. She turns mastery into leverage.
Pure leverage.
And she rides this leverage all the way to Chicago, where she hits the absolute pinnacle of her career trajectory.
This is a major turning point.
Huge. She becomes the educational director at Wilford Beauty Academy, overseeing 800 students.
800 students.
800. She has the corner office, the title, the financial security, the total mastery of her craft.
She followed the blueprint perfectly.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
And the result of achieving all of that is a paralyzing sense of existential emptiness.
Yeah, and it is the defining paradox of the high achiever.
It really is.
I mean, why is it that the ultimate realization of a goal so frequently triggers a psychological void?
Right, like you get to the top and you're like, is this it?
Exactly, because when you are climbing the mountain, the sheer cognitive load of the struggle gives you a localized sense of purpose.
Because you're so focused on surviving.
Yes, the mechanics of surviving, of learning the trade, of overcoming prejudice that required all of her bandwidth.
But once you reach the summit, there is literally nothing left to push against.
Nothing.
The physical mastery of the scissors, the management of the students, it was no longer demanding enough to sustain her internal life.
She had optimized her external world, and it left her entirely alone with her internal one.
That is so well said. And the source material details how aggressively she tried to solve this internal void.
She didn't just sit there feeling sad.
No, she went to work on it. It's the late 70s and early 80s, which is the golden age of the human potential movement.
Oh yeah, the self-help boom.
Exactly. And she mentions going through the EST training, which was created by Werner Erhard, specifically seeking the purpose for which he was brought into the world.
Now, we need to unpack the Estes training because the transcript notes she found self-discovery but absolutely zero satisfaction.
Yeah, why did it fail her? Because a lot of people love that stuff.
So, Erhard Seminars training, or EST, it was this rigorous, highly confrontational psychological seminar.
Like they would yell at you, right?
Yeah, it was designed to aggressively strip away a person's defensive narratives. And the core philosophy was radical personal responsibility.
Huh.
The idea that you are the sole author of your reality. And true freedom comes from getting it, which meant accepting that the universe has no intrinsic meaning other than what you actively assign to it.
Ah, okay. That explains the failure perfectly.
Right.
Because if you are experiencing a profound void of purpose, a framework that tells you you are the sole author of the universe doesn't fill the void.
Not at all.
It just makes you entirely responsible for the void.
Exactly. It points the individual endlessly back inward.
And she was already tired of looking inward.
Right. Dr. Spicer didn't need another mirror. She needed an anchor point outside of herself.
She needed a teleological framework.
Yeah.
Like a belief that her life was designed for a specific external reason.
Yes.
And the mechanism of how she finds it is just, it's a study in forced stillness.
The snowy Sunday.
The snowy Sunday. Okay, so she is living in Chicago. It's a Sunday morning.
Yep.
And she fully intends to go out, but her car refuses to start.
Just a dead engine.
Dead.
Yeah.
And the snow is dumping down. She is physically trapped in her apartment.
So she does what anyone would do.
She turns on the television. And she lands on a local broadcast of Apostle Frederick Casey Price preaching.
And the way her brain processes this initial encounter is honestly fascinating.
It's the best detail in the whole transcript.
It really is. Because she doesn't immediately experience this grand theological awakening.
No.
The very first thing she observes is his hair.
Of course it is.
She notes in the transcript that he was pacing the stage with his Bible and he had a perfect afro.
Okay, but let's deconstruct that for a moment. Why is a perfect afro the hook for her?
From the perspective of a master precision cutter, an afro is one of the most geometrically unforgiving hairstyles in existence.
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
Oh, yeah. It requires an absolute mastery of spherical balance, tension, and cutting angles to ensure the shape holds its structural integrity without looking uneven or dense in the wrong areas.
So it's heavily mathematical.
Highly. She was literally evaluating the mathematical execution of the preacher's silhouette before she ever registered a single word he was saying.
The professional lens never turns off.
Never.
But that aesthetic appreciation, it essentially buys him 5 minutes of her attention.
That's all it took.
Right. And in those 5 minutes, the actual theological message penetrates. And it really makes you wonder about the mechanics of the pivot.
How so?
Like, why does it seem like the biggest pivots in life always happen when we were physically stuck? If her car had started in that Chicago snow, she would have just gone about her routines.
She would have been out the door.
Yeah. The physical breakdown of her vehicle was the prerequisite for her psychological breakthrough.
Because when our forward momentum is forcibly stopped, whether by a stalled engine or a sudden illness or even a market crash, it strips away all our operational distractions.
We're forced to just sit there.
We are forced into a passive state. And in that stillness, the cognitive loops that normally occupy our minds quiet down, which allows new information to finally register.
And the information registers deeply for her. She eventually transfers back to Los Angeles, begins attending Crenshaw Christian Center in 1987, and experiences this radical internal shift.
A total transformation.
She describes it as getting saved for real. And almost immediately, she receives a visceral calling to ministry.
Which is wild because the transcript points out that nobody in her family had ever been in ministry.
Right. This wasn't an inherited family dynamic where she's just taking over the family church. It was a completely disruptive new trajectory.
And now we must examine the expectation versus the reality of that calling.
Because they were very different.
Incredibly different. When someone receives a mandate for spiritual leadership, the traditional blueprint dictates a very specific sequence of actions.
You quit your job.
Right. You exit the secular workforce, you acquire a physical building, you stand behind a wooden pulpit, and you deliver sermons to a congregation.
That is exactly what she was waiting for. She expected a pulpit.
Yep.
Instead, she receives a vision anchored by a very specific piece of ancient text, Psalm 90.17, which reads, "Establish the work of our hands."
The work of our hands.
Right. And for a woman who has spent 2 decades manipulating shears and hair with her fingers, the phrase, "the work of our hands," is startlingly literal.
The mandate was a massive paradigm shift. She was not being asked to abandon her secular skills. She was being asked to integrate them.
And so in 1988, she founded the Christian Cosmetology International Association, the CCIA.
Which was revolutionary.
If you were listening to this today, terms like purpose-driven business or marketplace ministry are everywhere.
Oh, they're buzzwords.
You literally can't open LinkedIn without tripping over a faith-based entrepreneur. But in 1988,
Unheard of.
she says she felt like the Lone Ranger because the religious establishment viewed the salon as vanity, right?
Right.
And the salon industry viewed religion as a private weekend activity. She was basically building a bridge over a chasm that neither side wanted to cross.
And to build that bridge, she had to dismantle her own financial security.
Which is terrifying.
Because stepping into purpose rarely coincides with an immediate increase in capital.
Usually the opposite.
Almost always the opposite. She quit her lucrative director position at the academy to attend ministry school during the day.
And she was a single mother.
Yes, of 2 teenage daughters. She went from the peak of her earning potential to severe financial vulnerability overnight.
And I have to ask, why is it that the moment someone steps out to pursue a higher calling, they are almost immediately hit with a severe practical test, like running out of money? It feels almost adversarial.
It is the economic cost of reskilling.
Reskilling. Okay, I like that.
When you shift paradigms, the mastery you held in the previous system does not immediately monetize in the new one.
You're a beginner again.
You are effectively starting over at the bottom of a new hierarchy, but you're still carrying the overhead costs of your previous life stage.
Which creates immense pressure.
Exactly, forcing the individual to prove their commitment to the new path.
And the pressure almost breaks her. But then, the network she built through her secular mastery catches her.
Their relationships save her.
Yeah. Debbie Pierce, the only other black stylist from her elite New York team years ago, is transitioning out of the salon world into film and television.
Oh, the timing is perfect.
Unbelievable timing. Debbie offers Dr. Spicer a spot in a Beverly Hills salon, giving her an established clientele so she can survive financially while finishing ministry school.
It is a critical lifeline. However, it also creates a crucible of disappointment.
How so?
Well, she graduates from ministry school fully expecting the phone to ring with offers to run a traditional church.
Right. She did the work. Give me the pulpit.
Exactly. But the phone stays completely silent. She is forced to continue standing behind the salon chair in Beverly Hills.
And it is in that specific crucible, standing behind a chair when she desperately wanted to stand behind a pulpit, that she has the defining revelation of her entire life.
The core thesis of her legacy.
She says, quote, "If I'm not going to go behind the pulpit, this chair is going to have to be my pulpit."
Wow.
That statement fundamentally redefines the architecture of a church. It strips the religious building entirely out of the equation.
It is the ultimate manifestation of what theologians call the theology of presence.
Okay, unpack that for us.
To understand why this is so profound, we really have to deconstruct the psychology of a salon chair.
Okay.
It is one of the most intimate, vulnerable spaces in modern society. Think about it. A client is immobilized, draped in a cape, staring at their own unedited reflection in a mirror.
Which is intimidating enough on its own.
Exactly. While another human being stands behind them, physically touching their head.
Right. The physical touch drops the psychological defenses.
It's immediate vulnerability.
It acts as a confessional. People sit in that chair and process divorces, grief, job losses, insecurities. I mean, a stylist is basically operating as an unlicensed therapist for 12 hours a day.
Which is precisely why the chair is a more effective pulpit than a wooden podium.
Ah. Yes.
The traditional sermon is a one-way broadcast to a passive audience. You're just talking at them.
Right.
The salon chair is a localized, bi-directional intervention. It's a conversation.
That makes total sense.
But this raises a really significant operational question.
Let's hear it.
How does a devout, dogmatically conservative Christian minister operate within the beauty industry, which is historically one of the most liberal, eclectic, and boundary-pushing environments in the world, without being fired, ostracized, or completely alienating her clientele?
I mean, that is the ultimate tension of this entire transcript.
Yeah.
If she preaches at them, she loses her job. But if she stays silent, she feels she is betraying her calling.
It's a tightrope, and she solves this through just a master class in behavioral framing.
Walk us through it.
She explicitly warns young Christian stylists against the trap of religious isolation. She argues that if you only attend a Christian beauty school and you only learn scripture and you completely isolate yourself from secular culture,
You're useless.
exactly, you are entirely useless to the actual world. Her operational framework is based on unconditional positive regard.
And she points directly to the historical text of her faith, noting that Jesus did not limit his interactions to the religious elite.
Quite that.
Right. He actively sought out the marginalized, the messy, the culturally rejected. So she sets a firm, non-negotiable rule. A stylist must serve everyone, gay, straight, across all racial and economic backgrounds with absolute excellence and zero judgment.
The excellence is the barrier to entry. If her precision cutting is flawless, the client feels deeply valued.
I trust her immediately.
Yes, and the lack of judgment provides the psychological safety. She doesn't compromise her internal belief system, but she also recognizes that aggressive proselytization is a violation of the client's consent in that specific space.
She communicates her ministry through the quality of her listening, right? The dignity she affords the client and just her physical presence.
It's incarnational ministry.
But let's be real. Absorbing that volume of human emotional output while standing in high heels for a 12-hour shift, I mean, physiologically and psychologically, she should have burned out in 6 months.
Without a doubt, compassion fatigue is a very well-documented phenomenon.
So what was her actual mechanism for survival? How did she endure that for decades?
She developed a highly structured, holistic defense mechanism based on the concept of the tripartite being.
The tripartite being.
Yes. It's the theological and psychological framework that a human consists of three distinct components: spirit, soul, and body.
Huh?
She recognized that a failure in one quadrant would inevitably cause the collapse of the other two.
Let's break down these quadrants, starting with the soul, which she defines as the mind, the will, and the emotions.
Right.
Now, you would expect a minister to say she feeds her mind purely with scripture.
That would be the cliche.
But the transcript reveals a totally different diet. She feeds her mind with secular personal development.
It's fascinating.
She studies John Maxwell's leadership principles. She consumes Myron Golden's sales psychology.
And it demonstrates her complete refusal to compartmentalize knowledge.
She takes what works.
She understands that to minister to people, you have to understand human behavioral economics.
Yeah.
By studying sales psychology, she isn't learning how to manipulate clients into buying expensive shampoo.
Right, it's not a grift.
No, she is learning how human beings make decisions, how they process fear, and how they define value.
She integrates this because, on top of everything else, she also acquired licenses in real estate and insurance.
I mean, she never stopped learning.
Never. Which brings us to the physical quadrant, the body.
This is a crucial piece of her story.
She views the physical body as the necessary vessel for the work. Now, she humorously admits she drinks far too much coffee, much to the chagrin of her daughter.
We can all relate to that.
Definitely. But beneath the caffeine reliance is a staggering foundation of physical grit, forged through early childhood trauma.
Yes.
The transcript reveals that until the age of 5, she was disabled. She had a birth defect that required her to navigate the world on crutches.
And we have to analyze the psychological imprint of that specific disability in the context of the late 1940s.
Because it wasn't like it is today.
Not at all. Medical interventions were much cruder. The social accommodations we have today simply did not exist.
So for a young child to watch her peers run and play while she is confined to heavy, cumbersome crutches.
The default psychological response is often internalized limitation.
A belief that you were just broken.
A belief that the physical world is inherently hostile and restrictive.
What her response was the exact opposite.
Which is incredible.
The moment the cast came off and the surgeries healed, she became hyper-physical. She ran track, she played baseball, she played dodgeball.
She went all in.
She treated her body not as a fragile thing to be protected, but as an instrument to be tested.
She learned the mechanics of active resistance very early on. She learned that adversity cannot be passively accepted. It has to be aggressively pushed against.
Wow.
And this childhood physical warfare laid the neural pathways for her adult resilience.
So when people asked her how she could possibly stand behind a salon chair for 12 hours a day in high heels,
her response was effectively, because my body works now and I am going to prove it.
it's an act of physical defiance.
Pure defiance.
She is actually currently writing a book titled No More Crutches, using that literal experience as a metaphor for psychological and spiritual limitations.
That's a perfect title.
And that leads directly into the third quadrant, the spirit. Because she views mental fatigue, depression, and self-doubt not simply as, chemical imbalances or psychological hurdles,
But as active spiritual warfare.
Exactly. She relies heavily on the ancient text of Ephesians 6, which is the concept of putting on spiritual armor.
Right.
She operates under the paradigm that there is an active external spiritual enemy whose primary objective is to hijack the mind, seal your joy, and neutralize your purpose.
And if we translate that into the context of the salon, it makes perfect sense. She approaches spiritual and mental warfare the exact same way a master colorist approaches chemical hair damage.
Okay, I love this analogy. Let's hear it.
You do not wait for the bleach to fry the cuticle and cause split ends to travel all the way up the hair shaft.
Because then it's too late. The hair is ruined.
Exactly. You apply a chemical bond builder, a protective shield, before you ever begin the process.
And for Dr. Spicer, that bond builder is prophetic intercessory prayer.
It is a preventative cognitive framing. Before she ever steps onto the salon floor to absorb the trauma of 15 different clients in a day, she establishes her psychological boundaries through prayer.
She calls it fighting on your knees.
Right.
She built a habit of praying over the mundane frictions of life. Like if a pipe bursts, she prays. If a financial deadline looms, she prays.
She demystified the whole process for her daughters. She took prayer out of the ethereal, religious clouds and weaponized it as a highly practical tool for daily survival.
When that survival mechanism was pushed to its absolute limits by the reality of elder care.
This part of the transcript it's really heavy.
It is. The transcript provides a remarkably unvarnished look at the burden of caregiving. In her later years, she became the primary caregiver for her father, who suffered from Alzheimer's until his passing in 2019.
And she continues to care for her 92-year-old mother today.
The honesty she brings to this is just piercing. Because in many religious circles, there is a toxic positivity that demands you view every hardship purely as a blessing.
God won't give you more than you can handle.
Right, and Dr. Spicer rejects that completely. She explicitly states that while it is an honor to care for her parents, there are days she looks up and says, do I really have to do this?
Yeah.
The raw exhaustion of watching a parent lose their cognitive function to Alzheimer's is devastating.
And by acknowledging the resentment and the sheer physical exhaustion, she validates the experience of millions of caregivers.
She doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, she manages the cognitive dissonance by compartmentalizing it into the concept of seasons. She understands that a season of intense caregiving requires the temporary suspension of other ambition.
Because you literally just don't have the bandwidth.
Exactly.
And because of that intense season, she had to step away from the industry. The organization she founded in 1988, the CCIA, the pioneer of marketplace ministry in the beauty world, it went dormant.
It basically shut down.
Without her active energy driving it, the infrastructure quietly faded into the background.
And historically, this is where the story usually ends, right? This is the final chapter of a pioneer's story.
They just fade away.
The founder ages, the immediate crisis of caregiving takes over, and the revolutionary work is swallowed by time, remembered only by, a few peers.
But the timeline of this transcript intersects with the internet age, which brings us to a phenomenon I can only really describe as a generational echo.
It's amazing.
The resurrection of her life's work doesn't come from her peers. It comes from a Google search.
Yeah. 2 millennial women in the beauty industry, Valentina and Amanda.
Right.
They were experiencing the exact same existential void Dr. Spicer felt in Chicago 30 years prior.
They were at the top of their game and feeling empty.
Exactly. They were seeking a framework to combine their professional craft with their faith. So they turned to a search engine, typed in the parameters of their desire, and the algorithm surfaced the digital footprints of Dr. Stella Spicer.
Think about the cultural shift here. Millennials and Gen Z are famous for demanding purpose-driven work.
They refused to compartmentalize.
Exactly. They refuse to separate their values from their labor. So these two young women find Dr. Spicer, they cold call her, and within an hour of conversation they say, "We are organizing the first ever faith-based hair show in the Smoky Mountains, and you have to be our keynote speaker."
It is the ultimate vindication of the pioneer.
It really is.
She spent decades feeling like the Lone Ranger, fighting the friction of a culture that wasn't ready for her. She didn't even have to rebuild her organization. The culture finally evolved to the point where the next generation actively demanded the infrastructure she had built decades ago.
They bring her to the Hair Life show in Tennessee. She steps out onto a stage looking at hundreds of young stylists who are desperate for the exact wisdom she forged in the fires of 1970s barbershops and 1980s Beverly Hills salons.
And the momentum violently shifts outward again.
She transitions seamlessly from the role of the isolated practitioner to the role of the universally recognized matriarch.
She leans right into it. She begins co-hosting a podcast, Beauty Industry Ministry, with Tina Black.
She launches a YouTube channel.
It's not just industry validation, it's legacy within her own bloodline.
Yes, the family aspect is so cool. Her 5 adult grandchildren, whom she affectionately calls her 5 heartbeats, they produced a documentary chronicling her life.
And her daughters, Tony and Esty, operate in business and ministry right alongside her.
She is known universally as Mama Stella and Grandy. She has effectively cloned her purpose.
Which brings us to the culminating metaphor of the transcript.
This gave me chills when I read it.
It is a brilliant piece of scriptural reinterpretation that ties the entire 53-year journey together. She references the narrative of the Apostle Peter.
Okay, remind us of that story.
So Peter is a commercial fisherman. He understands the tides, the weather, the mechanics of the nets. He has mastered his secular trade.
Right.
Jesus approaches him, instructs him to cast his net one final time, yields a massive catch, and then tells him, "Follow me, and I will make you a fisher of men."
And Dr. Spicer applies this directly to her own hands. She spent over half a century holding a physical pair of shears.
Those scissors were her fishing net.
Exactly. They provided her economic survival, they forced her into rooms she would have otherwise been completely excluded from, and they gave her the intimate proximity required to hear the confessions of thousands of people.
But the mastery of the net was always a prerequisite for something else.
She states that her calling eventually required her to hang up the literal scissors and pick up the metaphorical sword of the Spirit.
She traded the physical tool of her trade for a spiritual one.
But the critical insight here is that the skills did not reset.
Not at all.
The discipline required to stand for 12 hours, the psychological acuity required to de-escalate an angry client, the precision required to execute a geometric haircut, all of that secular mastery transferred flawlessly into her spiritual leadership.
She didn't abandon her identity. She weaponized it for a higher objective.
So if you're listening to this right now, look at your own hands. Look at the spreadsheets you build, the logistics you coordinate, the code you write, the meals you cook.
It is incredibly easy to view those tasks as mundane, secular friction.
Just the things you do to pay the mortgage.
Right.
But Dr. Spicer's blueprint proves that the secular and the sacred are not different locations. They are the exact same space, separated only by the intentionality of the operator.
The transcript offers a very clear operational checklist for meaning.
Let's summarize it.
First, you must submit to the brutal mechanics of mastery. Your technical skill is the only currency that will buy you access to closed rooms.
Like her precision cutting opening doors in New York.
Exactly.
Right.
Second, you must recognize that existential emptiness at the height of your success is not a malfunction.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Right. It is the signal that you are ready to pivot from success to significance.
Third, you must actively protect your cognitive and physical bandwidth against the inevitable trauma of serving human beings.
That holistic defense.
And finally, you must document your frameworks so that the next generation can find them when the culture inevitably catches up to your vision.
We have tracked a journey from a 5-year-old girl constrained by crutches and the suffocating heat of 1940 salons,
through the geometric revolution of precision cutting.
Into the profound realization that a Beverly Hills styling chair can hold the exact same sacred weight as a stained glass cathedral.
It is a masterclass in repurposed mastery. And as we conclude this analysis, the transcript demands a localized application for you, the listener.
It really does. Dr. Spicer spent decades perfecting her grip on a physical pair of scissors, only to realize they were merely a training mechanism for the real tool she was destined to wield.
So take a relentless inventory of your current reality. What is the specific pair of scissors you are holding today?
What is that localized, everyday skill you have bled to perfect?
And if the paradigm shifted tomorrow, forcing you to put that physical tool down, how exactly could you leverage the unseen mastery you've acquired to construct something that actually outlives you?
It's the question of a lifetime.
It really is. Thank you for enduring the friction of this deep dive with us. Keep deconstructing the world around you, keep asking the difficult questions, and we will see you next time.